The medical wing of the orbital station was silent except for the steady hum of machines. In one of the chambers, an alien girl lay on a narrow bed. Her skin, once shimmering with soft color, had faded to a pale gray. Her breathing was shallow, uneven, like a flame struggling to stay alive against the wind. Everyone knew her time was almost over. The healers had tried every method their science could offer. Strange glowing fluids had been pumped into her veins, mechanical supports had been placed around her heart, and her body had been scanned and repaired again and again. But nothing worked. Her organs were shutting down. It was only a matter of days, perhaps hours. Outside her room, people spoke in hushed voices. Some pitied her, others didn't care. To most, she was already gone. They called her the Lost One, a fragile being from a fragile species. Some even whispered cruel things, that it was better this way, that keeping her alive was a waste of energy and time. But someone stayed. A human. He stood outside the glass window almost every day, his hand pressed lightly against the surface. He had no reason to be there. She was not his kin, not his responsibility. Yet something about her weakness touched him in ways he could not explain. While others turned away, he watched her closely, as if willing her to fight. The alien girl noticed him. Even in her weakest moments, when her eyelids were too heavy to stay open, she sensed his presence. His tall shadow against the glass, his steady gaze, his quiet strength. It was strange. Her own kind had given up, but this outsider did not leave. Inside, her thoughts wandered in fragments. She remembered her homeworld skies, vast purple clouds that shimmered under twin suns. She remembered running through the crystal fields as a child, laughter echoing like music. Those days felt distant now, like dreams fading into darkness. She wondered if she would ever see such skies again, or if her last sight would be the cold ceiling of this chamber. The human stepped inside one evening. No alarm sounded. No one stopped him. He simply walked in, quiet, careful, as though he was entering sacred ground. The room smelled faintly of medicine and metal. He pulled a chair closer to her bed. For a moment, he just looked at her. Her eyes opened slowly, weak but aware. She blinked, trying to focus on him. He offered a small, uncertain smile. "You're still here," he said softly, almost as if speaking to himself. Her lips parted, but no sound came. The machines filled the silence with their steady beeping. He leaned closer, lowering his voice. "You don't know me," he continued, "but you're not alone. I won't let you be alone." She stared at him, her gaze fragile but curious. No one had spoken to her like that in a long time. Nurses came only to check readings, healers only to shake their heads. None had spoken words meant for her heart. Her thin hand moved slightly, trembling. He hesitated, then gently placed his own hand over hers. It was cold, almost weightless, but alive. For a brief second, her breathing steadied, as if his touch reminded her of something she had lost. Connection, comfort, hope. Outside, rumors spread. People asked why the human bothered. Why waste time on someone doomed? Some mocked him, saying humans were too sentimental. Others shook their heads, saying he would only break his own heart. But the human ignored them. Every day he came back. Every day he sat beside her, speaking quietly, telling her stories of his home, of oceans and forests she had never seen. The alien girl listened, though she rarely responded. She could not find the strength. Yet inside something stirred. His words painted colors in her fading mind, and his presence filled the cold room with warmth. She began to wonder, why did he care? What made him stay when even her own people had left? One night, as the lights dimmed in the corridor, she whispered her first words to him. Her voice was faint, broken, but clear enough. "Why you here?" The human looked at her, surprised. He had not expected her to speak. Slowly he answered, "Because no one else is." Her lips curved slightly, almost like the ghost of a smile. It was small, but it was the first sign of life her face had shown in weeks. The human knew she was dying. He knew the doctors would soon give up completely. But inside his chest, something burned stronger than reason. He could not explain it. He only knew that letting her slip away felt wrong. As he sat by her side, he made a silent promise. He would find a way, even if it meant giving more than anyone thought possible. The alien girl closed her eyes again, drifting back into fragile sleep. Yet for the first time in a long while, her breathing was steady. The machines hummed around her, but she no longer seemed entirely lost. And the human, sitting in silence beside her, felt a weight settle on his heart. He did not yet know what he would do, but he knew one thing: her story was not ending here. This was only the beginning. The doctors gathered in the control room, their voices low but sharp. Charts glowed on the screen, showing the alien girl's weakening vitals. Her heart rate dipped, her organs showed signs of collapse. One physician shook his head. "We cannot save her. The only chance is a replacement organ. But her body rejects all alien donors." Another doctor frowned. "Her blood chemistry is strange. It has no match among her own kind. Only one possible source aligns. But it is impossible." The human, standing silently at the edge of the room, leaned forward. "What source?" he asked. The doctors hesitated. Finally, one of them said the words that changed everything. "A human kidney. Only a human organ is compatible. But no one would do such a thing. It is dangerous. Could kill the donor." The room fell into silence. The doctors assumed that was the end of it. They expected him to step back, to understand that the girl was doomed. But he did not. His fists tightened, and his eyes stayed fixed on the monitors. He thought about the nights he had sat by her side, the way she had whispered weakly, "Why you here?" He thought about the way her hand had trembled but still reached for his. She had been abandoned by everyone else, yet still held on. And now he knew. There was a way. "I'll do it," he said quietly. The doctors turned sharply, disbelief in their eyes. "You don't understand," one of them snapped. "A kidney transplant across species is untested. Even if you survive the surgery, your life will never be the same. And she might not live anyway." "I understand," the human replied. His voice was calm, steady. "But if no one tries, she will definitely die. At least this way, she has a chance." They argued with him, warning of the risks. They told him about the pain, about the scars, about how giving up an organ would change his body forever. But none of it shook him. He had already made his choice. Later, when he visited her again, he looked at her fragile form. She was sleeping, her breath shallow, her skin faintly glowing under the dim lights. He sat beside her, whispering words she could not hear. "They say it's impossible. They say you're beyond saving. But I won't let them decide for you. I'll give you my strength, even if it costs me." Her hand twitched as if in response, though her eyes stayed closed. He felt it like a silent promise between them, a bond stronger than fear. The preparations began in secret. The doctors reluctantly agreed, though many still thought it was madness. The surgical chamber was prepared with advanced equipment, sterile lights, and machines that hummed like distant thunder. It felt less like a medical room and more like a battlefield, where two lives would fight to hold on. On the night before the surgery, the human sat alone in his quarters. He stared at his reflection in the small metal mirror. His face looked calm, but inside, his thoughts swirled. What if he didn't survive? What if his sacrifice was for nothing? But then he remembered her eyes. Weak, yes, but filled with a spark that refused to die. He remembered her faint smile when he told her she was not alone. That memory silenced his doubts. If there was even a small chance to give her life, it was worth everything. The next morning, the alien girl was moved into the operating chamber. She was too weak to understand what was happening, her mind drifting in darkness. The human walked beside the stretcher, his hand resting gently on hers. She stirred faintly, her lips parting. "Why you still here?" she whispered, barely audible. He smiled down at her. "Because you matter," he said softly. "And I'm not leaving you behind." The doors of the chamber closed. Inside, bright lights flooded the room, and the machines began to beep in preparation. The doctors moved quickly, attaching lines, preparing tools. The human lay down on the parallel bed, his body ready to be opened, his strength ready to be given away. For a moment there was silence. He turned his head, looking across at the alien girl. Even in her weakness, she looked back, her dim eyes locking onto his. She did not understand what he was doing, not fully, but she saw the determination in his gaze. And in that moment, she knew he was giving her something no one else had ever offered, hope. The surgeons exchanged uncertain glances. "It's madness," one whispered. Or, another muttered, "It's something more." As the anesthetic spread through his body, the human's last thought before darkness was simple. She will live. She must live. And as the machines roared to life, as scalpels gleamed under the sterile lights, a dangerous gamble began. Two lives balanced on the edge of fate, one fading, one sacrificing. No one knew what the outcome would be, but one truth was certain: the human had made his choice. He was willing to risk everything, even his own future, to save the alien girl no one else believed in. And in that choice, a new story had already begun. The surgical chamber was filled with a heavy silence, broken only by the steady hum of machines. Bright white lights glared down, making the place feel less like a room and more like a stage where two lives would fight for survival. On one bed lay the alien girl, frail and barely breathing. On the other, the human lay still, his body prepared for a sacrifice no one else would have dared. Doctors moved quickly, their faces tense. They had warned him again and again. This was untested. This was dangerous. This could end with 2 deaths instead of 1 life saved. But the human's decision had been final. Now there was no turning back. "Vitals dropping," one doctor said, looking at the alien's monitor. Her heart rate was faint, irregular. Every second mattered. "Start the transfer," another ordered. Scalpels gleamed under the lights. The human's body was opened with precision, the surgeons working carefully, each movement heavy with risk. Beside him, the alien girl was connected to new machines, her body fragile like glass, ready to shatter at the smallest mistake. Time slowed. Every beep from the monitors echoed like thunder in the silence. The doctor's hands shook slightly. This was no ordinary surgery. This was a battle against nature, against time, against the rules that had said she could not be saved. Hours passed. Sweat rolled down the doctors' foreheads as they worked tirelessly, stitching veins, connecting tissue, adjusting the organ so that it would not be rejected. The human's life signs weakened, his blood pressure dropping dangerously. "His levels are falling," one nurse shouted. "We can't stop now," the lead surgeon replied. "If we do, both will die." The tension in the room was unbearable. Outside the glass wall, a few silent watchers gathered, nurses, workers, even strangers from the station. None spoke, but their eyes stayed fixed on the 2 figures inside. Some whispered that it was madness, others that it was a miracle in the making. Inside the human's fading mind, strange visions formed. He saw flashes of oceans from his world, blue and endless, crashing against white shores. Then he saw her, the alien girl, standing on that beach, alive, strong, smiling. He did not know if it was a dream or a glimpse of the future, but it gave him strength to keep holding on. The alien girl, drifting in unconsciousness, felt something too. She floated in darkness, hearing faint echoes, voices telling her to let go, to rest, that it was over. But through the shadows, another voice called to her, warm, steady, human. "You're not alone. I'm here." Her chest stirred faintly, her heart fighting weakly against the void. She did not understand what was happening, but she felt him, his presence, his sacrifice. And deep inside, her spirit clung to it like a lifeline. "Connection complete," the surgeon announced finally. "Begin stabilization." The organ was in place, but the battle was far from over. Her body began to react, her immune system fighting the strange addition. Machines beeped wildly, alarms flashing red. "She's rejecting it," a doctor shouted. "No," The lead surgeon growled. Adjust the levels. Increase the suppressors. Don't let go. The human's body twitched slightly under the strain, his pulse weak but steady. He had given what he could, now it was up to her to accept it. Minutes stretched into eternity. The monitor screamed, her vitals spiking, dropping, spiking again. Then slowly something changed. The numbers steadied. Her heart rate began to rise, faint but growing. The doctors froze, staring at the screen. She's stabilizing, whispered one nurse. It's working. Hope spread across the room, fragile but real. The doctors redoubled their efforts, adjusting, stitching, monitoring. Slowly, her color returned, faint glow pulsing back into her skin. Her chest rose more evenly, her breaths no longer sharp gasps but steady draws of air. The human, pale and weak, lay unconscious. His body had lost blood, his strength nearly drained. But his sacrifice had taken root. The alien girl was alive, barely but alive. Outside, whispers filled the corridor. Some gasped in disbelief. Others shook their heads in awe. No one had expected to see this moment. A human giving part of himself to save an alien life, it was unheard of, unthinkable. Yet it was happening before their eyes. The doctors finally stepped back, exhausted. It's not over yet, the lead surgeon warned. The next hours will decide if she lives or dies. But for now, she has a chance. As the chamber grew quiet again, the two lay side by side. One who had risked everything, and one who had been given more than she ever imagined. Machines hummed softly, watching over them, as if guarding a fragile miracle. In the silence, the alien girl's fingers twitched. Slowly, weakly, they moved toward the human's hand resting near hers. Though unconscious, his fingers shifted slightly, as if answering her. Two lives, connected by blood and sacrifice, now shared a single battle against time. And outside the glass wall, the watchers stood in silence. They had come expecting death. Instead, they had witnessed the beginning of something no one could explain. Something that would change both their worlds forever. The chamber was quiet after the storm of surgery. Machines hummed softly, their lights blinking like faint stars in the silence. On one bed lay the human, pale and weak, his body fighting to recover from the loss of what he had given away. On the other bed lay the alien girl, her skin now carrying a faint glow, as if life had returned, but fragile, uncertain, and still hanging by a thread. The doctors whispered among themselves. The procedure is done, one said, but the next hours are critical. Either her body will accept the gift, or both will be lost. They left the chamber dim, watching from outside, waiting to see what fate would decide. Inside, the alien girl drifted in a deep darkness. It felt endless, like floating in an empty sea where no sound or light could reach. She thought she was gone, that her body had finally failed. But then, there was something. A voice, gentle, steady, pulling her back. You're not alone. Hold on. She recognized it, the human's voice. She had heard it before when she was too weak to speak, when he sat by her side and whispered to her as though his words alone could keep her alive. Now, in the darkness, that voice was the only thing that kept her from letting go. Images flickered in her mind. She saw her homeworld, its skies filled with twin suns. She saw her people's faces, distant and fading, as if they had already left her behind. But then she saw him, the human, sitting by her bed, his hand holding hers. His face was clear, his eyes steady. He was the anchor in the storm, and she felt herself reaching for him. Her chest stirred faintly. The machines registered a small change. Her heart rate, once weak and failing, began to rise just a little. The doctors outside leaned forward, watching closely. Her body is fighting, one said. She's not gone yet. But her fight was not easy. Inside her mind, shadows pressed closer, whispering for her to rest, to let go. The darkness promised peace. No more pain, no more struggle. She almost gave in until the voice returned. Live. Please, live. It was not a command. It was a plea, a sacrifice carried in the sound. And with it, she felt warmth spread through her chest. The human's gift, now a part of her, keeping her alive. Meanwhile, the human lay unconscious, his face pale. His body had paid the price, and now it was struggling to recover. He dreamed too, drifting between life and death. He saw flashes of a bright ocean, waves crashing endlessly. He saw her standing there, the alien girl, reaching for him across the water. He wanted to go to her, but every step felt heavy, as if chains pulled him down. In his dream, he heard her voice faintly. "Why, you still here?" And he answered just as he had before. "Because you matter, and I won't leave you behind." The dream faded, but his body still clung to life, his pulse weak but steady. Hours passed. Doctors checked their readings, their eyes moving from one bed to the other. "She's stabilizing," one whispered. "The organ is holding, but she's still too weak." They adjusted the machines, careful not to disturb the fragile balance. It was a waiting game now, whether the alien girl's body would continue to accept the human's gift, or whether it would turn against it. Inside her own mind, she felt herself crawling toward the voice, away from the shadows. Every step was heavy, but she kept moving. Finally, she reached a faint light. When she touched it, warmth flooded her body, spreading through her veins. Her eyes flickered open. First, everything was blurry. The ceiling lights glowed faintly above her. Machines hummed at her side. And then she turned her head, slowly, painfully, and saw him, the human, lying unconscious just a few feet away. Her chest tightened, but not from weakness this time. She realized then what he had done. His body looked drained, fragile, and she understood that he had given something of himself to save her. She felt it inside her, the strange new strength that did not belong to her kind. His sacrifice was now part of her. Her lips trembled as she whispered, her voice almost lost in the quiet room. "You gave me life." No one heard her except the machines, but her words were real. For the first time in weeks, tears touched her eyes. Not from pain, but from something she had thought she would never feel again, hope. Outside the chamber, the doctors noted the change. "She's waking," one said, surprised. "She's actually waking." The alien girl kept her gaze on the human. She reached out weakly, her fingers trembling as they stretched toward his hand. She could not touch him yet, the distance was too great, but the effort itself was a promise. Between life and death, a bond had been forged. One had risked everything, and the other had chosen to fight because of it. The world outside still whispered doubts, still believed it was madness. But in that quiet chamber, a miracle was unfolding. Two lives were tied together now, not by fate, not by chance, but by choice. And for the first time, the alien girl believed she had a future. Her heart beat steadily, her body slowly gaining strength. She closed her eyes again, not to surrender, but to rest. Because now she knew she was not alone. And as the human stirred faintly in his own sleep, his lips moved with a silent promise. A promise that this was only the beginning. The first signs came slowly, like dawn creeping over a dark horizon. A steady rhythm pulsed from the alien girl's chest, stronger than before. Her skin, once pale and cold, carried a faint warmth now. The machines that had screamed warnings only hours ago began to quiet, their alarms replaced by steady beeps. To the doctors outside the glass wall, it was nothing short of a miracle. Inside, her eyelids fluttered. Her body felt heavy, but no longer empty. She could feel something new moving through her veins. A strength that was not her own but had become part of her. She inhaled deeply, and for the first time in months, her breath did not feel like broken glass. She turned her head slowly. On the bed beside her, the human lay unconscious, pale and weak. Tubes and wires covered his body, but his chest rose and fell, faint but steady. Her gaze lingered on him, and she remembered. His voice in the darkness, his promise, his sacrifice. Her throat tightened as she whispered, almost too soft to hear, "You saved me." The doctors entered cautiously, checking her vitals. Their eyes widened when they saw her awake. "Impossible," one muttered. "She should not have survived." But the numbers on the screen told the truth. Her body was stabilizing, the transplant holding. She was alive. The alien girl's eyes, however, were not on the doctor's. They were fixed on the human. Her hand trembled as she reached toward him, brushing weakly against his fingers. Though he did not wake, his hand twitched slightly, as if answering her. Something bloomed inside her chest. It was not just gratitude. It was something deeper, something she did not yet understand but felt with every beat of her new heart. Over the next days, her strength began to return little by little. She could sit up, speak more clearly, even smile faintly when she saw him resting. Nurses came and went, recording her progress with astonishment. The story spread across the station. The alien girl who had been beyond saving now lived because a human had given part of himself. People whispered in the halls, some in awe, others in disbelief. But she did not care what they said. For her, only one truth mattered. She was alive because of him. One morning, when the chamber was quiet, she gathered enough strength to stand. Her legs shook, but she forced herself upright, holding onto the rail for support. Step by step, she crossed the small distance to his bed. Her hand rested on the edge as she leaned closer to his face. "You gave me more than life," she whispered. "You gave me hope, and I will never forget." Her tears fell silently, landing on his hand. For a moment, she thought she saw his eyelids twitch, but he remained still. Yet even his stillness gave her strength. She believed that if he could give her his life, then she could give him her heart in return. That night she dreamed again, but this time it was not of darkness. She dreamed of walking under her homeworld's twin suns, and beside her walked the human. He looked at her, not with pity, but with the same steady gaze he had given her in the chamber. And in the dream she held his hand, not because she was weak, but because she wanted to. When she awoke, her body felt stronger. The doctors were amazed. "Her recovery is accelerating," they said. "It's as if her body is adapting faster than we thought possible." But the girl knew the truth. It was not just medicine. It was the bond between them, the silent connection formed between life and death. She was alive because of him, and now every breath she took felt like a promise to honor that gift. On the 5th day after the surgery, she sat beside his bed, her voice firmer than before. "You gave me part of you," she said softly, though he could not hear. "Now all of me belongs to you." The room was quiet, but inside her chest, her heart beat strongly, carrying both her life and his sacrifice. She placed her hand gently over his, closing her eyes. From the hallway, people peeked in, whispering. Some saw only a fragile alien girl beside a broken human. But those who looked closer could see something greater, something unexplainable. Two lives intertwined, one reborn because the other had chosen to give without hesitation. She smiled faintly, her strength growing with every passing hour. She no longer feared the shadows. She no longer felt abandoned. She had been saved by a human's heart, and in return, she would give him hers. And though he slept, she believed he already knew. Days passed, and the alien girl's strength continued to grow. She could walk now without the rail, her steps steady though still cautious. Her eyes no longer carried the dull glow of fading life. They shone with something new, hope, determination. And every time she looked at the human lying beside her, she felt her chest tighten with emotions she had no words for. The human remained weak, drifting in deep rest. His body was healing, but slowly. The doctors said it would take time before he woke fully. They warned her not to expect miracles, not to expect him to rise soon. But she ignored their doubts. She remembered how he had sat by her side when everyone else left. She remembered his words in the darkness. "You're not alone." Now she refused to leave him. She stayed in his chamber from dawn to night. She learned how to check his monitors, how to adjust the blankets when he shivered, how to speak softly so his mind would know she was near. She told him stories of her world, about the glowing crystal fields, about rivers that sang when the wind touched them, about the way the sky changed colors when both suns set. She spoke not because he answered, but because she believed he could hear. One evening, as she held his hand, she whispered, You gave me your life, but I will not let you fight alone. From now on, I am yours." Her words were soft, but her heart pounded as she spoke them. Something inside her told her he heard, even if his eyes stayed closed. The nurses began to notice her devotion. "She never leaves his side," one said quietly. "It is as if she belongs to him now." Others whispered in the halls. Some mocked, calling it foolish, unnatural. But some were moved, seeing a bond that went beyond blood or species. A bond born of sacrifice. On the 7th night, she dreamed again. In the dream, she walked through the chamber, but it was no longer cold. It was filled with light. The human stood at the far end, waiting for her. When she reached him, he smiled, not weak, not tired, but strong. He reached out and she placed her hand in his. In the dream, she felt whole. She woke with tears in her eyes, whispering, "Come back to me." The next morning, the human stirred faintly. His eyelids fluttered. It was only for a second, but she saw it. Her heart leapt, and she quickly leaned closer. "You're here," she whispered, holding his hand tightly. "I knew you would stay." His lips moved weakly, no sound at first. She bent closer until she caught the faintest word. "Alive." Her tears fell as she nodded quickly. "Yes, because of you. I live because of you." He smiled faintly, then slipped back into sleep. But that single moment was enough. She knew he was coming back, step by step. From that day, she became his shadow. When he needed water, she lifted the cup to his lips. When he shivered, she wrapped him in warmth. When he opened his eyes for longer moments, she was the first face he saw. She gave him laughter, even if it was soft, and comfort, even when her own body was still healing. And slowly, his strength began to return. One evening, when the doctors left, he whispered hoarsely, "Why do you stay?" She looked at him, her eyes steady. "Because you gave me life. Cannot give it back. But I can give you my heart. And I will." He stared at her, weak but stunned. He had expected gratitude, perhaps silence, but not this. Her voice carried no hesitation, no confusion. It was truth as simple as breathing. "You don't owe me anything," he whispered. She shook her head gently. "This is not debt. This is choice. My choice." The human closed his eyes again, but his chest felt lighter, warmer. For the first time since the surgery, he let himself believe that his sacrifice had given him something more than survival. It had given him a bond that neither of them could break. Outside the chamber, people still whispered. Some said it was impossible, that their connection would fade once she was strong enough. But those who looked closely saw the truth in her eyes. She was not there out of pity or duty. She was there because her heart had chosen him. Every day after that, she reminded him without words. In the way she held his hand, in the way she smiled when he woke, in the way she whispered softly when he drifted back to sleep. She had been beyond saving, yet he had saved her. Now she lived not just for herself, but for him. The alien girl had been born weak, fragile, overlooked. But now, with part of him inside her, she was stronger than ever. Strong enough to protect him, to stand beside him, to repay what he had given her in the only way she could, by giving him her heart. And as the days passed, their bond grew into something undeniable. Something even the cold corridors of the station could not hide. She was no longer the lost one. She was his. And deep inside, she knew this was only the beginning of what they would become. The chamber that once echoed with the beeping of failing machines now carried a different sound. Laughter. It was soft, fragile, but real. The alien girl sat beside the human, her strength returning with every passing day. Her skin glowed with a healthy light, her movements no longer weak or trembling. She had been given life and she carried it with pride. The human, though still healing, had begun to walk again. His steps were slow, but his spirit was steady. Whenever he faltered, she was at his side, holding his arm, guiding him forward. It was almost strange. He had given her strength, and now she gave it back to him. The station buzzed with whispers. People who once mocked the idea now spoke in awe. She was beyond saving, they said. But he gave part of himself. And now look, she lives. Some still doubted, some still sneered at the bond between human and alien, but others watched with quiet respect. The girl ignored the whispers. Her focus was on him. She no longer saw herself as fragile or cursed. She had been reborn, and with every beat of her heart, she remembered the truth. It was his sacrifice that had made her whole. One evening, as the sun of the nearby planet cast a golden glow through the station windows, she turned to him. "Do you regret it?" she asked softly. He looked at her, tired but smiling. "Not for a moment." Her eyes softened. "You gave me life. I thought I was nothing, forgotten, left to die. But you refused to let me go. Why?" He paused, searching for words. "Because when I saw you, I couldn't stand to see someone so full of life left alone. It didn't matter that you weren't human. You mattered." Tears touched her eyes, but this time they were not born of sadness. She placed her hand over his. "Then know this. From now on, my life is yours. Not because I owe it, but because I choose it." Silence hung between them, but it was not empty. It was full of promises, full of unspoken feelings. Over the next weeks, they walked the station together. She followed him not out of weakness, but with pride. When others stared, she met their eyes boldly, her hand never leaving his. When some mocked, she ignored them, her head held high. And when whispers turned to threats, voices saying their bond was wrong, she stood firmly, shielding him with the same strength he had once given her. One day, as they passed a crowded hall, a group of aliens sneered. "A human tied to one of us? Madness. It cannot last." The girl stopped, her eyes fierce. She raised her voice, steady and clear. "He gave me life when no one else would. He gave me hope when even my own people abandoned me. He is my family now, and nothing you say will change that." The hall fell silent. The crowd parted, shocked by her courage. And the human, standing beside her, felt pride swell in his chest. She was no longer the fragile girl he had found dying. She was stronger than ever, and she had chosen to stand with him. That night, as they sat by the viewing window, watching the stars drift past, he turned to her. "You've changed," he said softly. She smiled faintly. "No, I was always this. I just needed someone to believe in me." "And now?" he asked. "Now," she whispered, her eyes glowing with warmth, "I believe in us." Their bond was no longer about survival. It had grown into something deeper, something no one could deny. She had repaid him not with debt, but with devotion. Her heart, once weak and fading, now beat strongly for him. As the stars burned bright outside, they sat together in silence, their hands entwined. Two lives from different worlds, tied by sacrifice, now walked a shared path. The galaxy was vast, full of challenges and voices that would never understand. But neither cared. They had faced death together and found life. And in that life, they had found each other. From that day forward, she no longer carried the title of the Lost One. She was his companion, his equal, his family. And for the human, who had once stood outside a glass wall watching a fragile alien fade away, there was no greater reward than this. She had not only survived, she had chosen to live for him. Their story spread across the stars, not as a tale of pity, but as a legend of sacrifice and love. A reminder that sometimes the greatest power in the universe was not technology, not wealth, not strength, but the simple choice to give and to love beyond boundaries. And so, with hearts bound together, they stepped into their shared future, hand in hand, ready for whatever awaited them among the stars.